It's impossible. In the late 1960s, a songwriter from Mexico penned a lyrical tune. It made its way to America and gained great popularity when recorded by crooner Perry Como. It was a love song called It's Impossible, and some think it may be the best love song of all time. The closing line says, "To live without your love, it's just impossible." And some of the other lines on the scene set the story. Can the ocean keep from rushing to the shore? It's just impossible. Ask a baby not to cry. It's just impossible. Well, you get the idea. It's a beautiful expression of love. But what happens when you are faced with a seemingly impossible situation? As a leader, you probably feel that it's not one impossible thing, but a series of them, one right after the other. I was just reading of an impossible event that Jesus' disciples faced. And it's interesting to see the Lord's response to them as they explained it to him. It happened during one of the times Jesus was teaching the thousands who had come to hear this great prophet. Luke writes of the impossible thing the disciples were facing. He wrote, "Late in the afternoon, the 12 disciples came to him, Jesus, and said, 'Send the crowds away to the nearby villages and farms so they can find food and lodging for the night. There is nothing to eat here in this remote place.'" That's from Luke 9. Jesus listened to his disciples, looked at them, and then he told them to do something impossible. "You feed them," he said. Do you ever wonder what the disciples thought? Jesus, didn't you just hear us? There is nothing here to eat. Have you ever found yourself in an impossible situation, one where you were sure God was leading you? Well, be ready. The Lord may have something miraculous right around the corner. You know the rest of that story, don't you? Jesus asked what food they did have. 5 loaves of bread and a couple of small fish. Jesus then took what was available to the disciples and did the miraculous. After blessing the tiny amount of food, he fed the thousands upon thousands with a surplus left over. My friend Richard Blackaby says to be careful when God places before you something that seems impossible. Richard says, when you declare it impossible for you to do what God told you to do, you show your doubts about how powerful God really is. It is one thing to believe in God's power. It's quite another to live your life in obedient response to an all-powerful God. That's from Blackaby's book, Experiencing God, Knowing and Doing the Will of God. So, an impossible situation before you? Don't tell God what can't be done. Look to see what things you have and be willing to bring that to the Lord. Then watch and see Jesus do another miracle before your eyes. You see, with God, it's not so impossible after all. Would you like to know how Media Alliance helps build up Christian media leaders around the world? Well, visit our website, MEDIALLIANCE.cc. And you can help us spread the impact of these videos by liking, sharing, and subscribing right now. Thanks, and God's best.